Well, the entire AFC West still chasing Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. According to ESPN analytics, the Chiefs have a 48% chance of winning the AFC West for a 10th straight season. Their division title streak, currently the second longest in the NFL, in the NFL's history, only behind the Patriots, who won 11 straight from 2009 to 2019. They're followed by the Chargers at 26% and then the Broncos at 20%. Now, Denver wideout Marvin Mims Jr. is optimistic about the Broncos continuing their rise.
You can really feel that, like, the times are, like, changing for us, you know, and we're kind of like, people always like to say, like, a win now mode. And, you know, with the way things went last year, I mean, we were projected to be last in the league last year and end up making their wild card. So the guys are here last year, they believe. And the guys are coming in, they want to make an impact too. So I think everyone's hungry.
Welcome to NFL Live, y'all. So glad you're with us today. Andrew Hawkins, Bill Barnwell, Dan Graziano with you for the hour. We got a lot to get to, but Bill, let's start there. We just heard the Denver optimism. Did the Broncos do enough to close that gap with the Chiefs?
Not so sure. Certainly some strides being made here, but there's a little bit of projection happening with some of those Sean Payton specials from New Orleans. Pat Bryant, their day 3 pick, is apparently the new Michael Thomas. R.J. Harvey, their second-round pick, is the next Alvin Kamara or Darren Sproles. Evan Ingram, who's never been a red zone threat or a vertical threat in his career, is now about to be the next Jimmy Graham. I don't know about all that stuff. There's things to be excited about here, and the defense is excellent, no question. But remember last year with Bo Nix, they were protecting him a lot on third downs and in passing situations. A lot of screens, a lot of throws to the sideline, RPOs, get the ball out quick. Nothing wrong with that. But I want to see him play better in those obvious passing situations. And I want to see them open up the offense in the way that shows that they trust him in those obvious passing situations. This team was 1-7 against playoff teams last year before that win in Week 18. So I want to see them play better against tougher competition this year.
Right. So if anyone's going to catch the Chiefs, the first thing that has to happen is the Chiefs have to slip. They won 15 games last year, and they weren't even trying to win their last one. So if that happens, then I think Denver is poised to take advantage. Head-to-head in the competitive game at Arrowhead, they were in position to win it before a blocked field goal. So Denver has the confidence that they can go and beat the Chiefs. If the quarterback makes as significant an improvement this offseason as he did throughout last season, then I think you have a real threat on your hands. It's a defense that could conceivably be elite. People don't like what they have at wide receiver. They do. And you talk about Sean Payton, this is second act stuff. This is legacy stuff for him. If he can turn this young quarterback into a star, that makes him even more legendary a coach than he already is. This is a team that is poised to potentially do big things as long as the quarterback makes a second-year jump.
I think for me is everything you guys said is spot on. But there's still a lot of questions. Even when you look at the Chiefs and everyone's having conversations about is Patrick Mahomes past his prime, like we've seen him better. But I look at it the other way. He's still been able to maintain, like you guys talked about, a 15-1 record despite the receiver issues we've seen over the last couple of years, despite the offensive line issues we've seen from the Chiefs. I think they actually got better in those departments. And when I look at the Broncos, I do think they're trending in that direction, but there's going to be a lot of questions this season that need to be answered. Number one is Bo Nix. This is his sophomore year. There's a whole year of film on him. There's a whole year of defense is now preparing for what he likes to do best. And on top of that, that scheme that he was in, there were some errant throws in there that if you watch the film, like it was very quarterback friendly with the quick screens, getting the ball out of his hands. And even down the field, he was great. But there was a little bit of risk associated with that. When you look at the receiving core, Marvin Mims talks about it. I do think they can develop a receiving core by committee, and it feels more about the Marcus Colston, Devery Henderson, Lance Moore era of the Saints. But that still remains to be seen. They have to probably develop a little bit more in their game before they're ready to take on the Kings.
Respect to Devery Henderson reference this early on the show, Hawk.
Love that.
Love to hear that. I think there's a lot to be excited about here. I just think, we have to see them really trust Bo Nix in those situations. He made big throws last year. If you watch Bo Nix's tape, you will see a couple of throws that are really impressive. Thinking about that cover 2 shot against the Browns that went for like a 90-yard touchdown to Mims. He can make any throw, but it's can you trust him in those spots over and over again when it has to be a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10?
Yeah, the Broncos went 2-7 versus teams with a winning record last season. We mentioned it earlier. One of those was against the Chiefs, who sat their starters in Week 18. Another Year 2 quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., he got a lot less experience than Bo Nix, actually. Some great weapons in that offense, though. And this is interesting. In a recent conversation with Mike Vick, the former Falcons quarterback, asked Penix what a successful season would be in Atlanta.
What's a successful season for the Atlanta Falcons and Michael Penix?
The postseason. Oh, gotta get in the postseason. Seeing like the Dirty Bird nest and like all the little highlights of the fans is like, man, like they get rocking whenever we win it. So like, I definitely want to get back to that. You know, winning football games so we can have the city turn.
Oh, man. It's pretty cool, actually, to see Mike Vick doing the interviewing. Michael Penix Jr. wasn't afraid to chuck the ball downfield in his 3 starts last season. We saw that in college a lot as well. In those games, he averaged over 10 air yards per attempt, and that's the most in the NFL. He had the 8th most passing yards, too. However, with his tendency to throw the deep ball, his completion percentage suffered, certainly ranking 29th in the NFL in that category. Overall, he ranked 22nd in total QBR in that span. The Falcons, of course, went 1-2. Graz, how are the Falcons feeling about their second-year quarterback?
They feel confident. This is, much like Bo Nix, Michael Penix enters the NFL with as much college football quarterbacking experience as anyone ever has, based on how long he was there. He's been through the ups and the downs of seasons. He's recovered from injuries. These guys that played 6 years in college have a level of experience that I think breeds confidence. And when you look at what the Falcons have done in the drafts prior to their selection of Penix, they were drafting high-level skill position players in the top 10, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. So I think they believe that they had a needed pass rush that they addressed in the draft. They beat Tampa Bay twice last year. That's the team that's won the division 4 years in a row. They believe that Michael Penix, if he's as ready as they thought he was when they drafted him, will slide right in there and they'll be a competitive team right away.
It's such an interesting question because what is the alternative answer to that? Beyond we're going to the playoffs. There's no other answer to that question that's going to satisfy anybody. So kudos to him. He's stepping in the right direction as a franchise guy. But to your point, like there is still a lot of experience for him to gain. It was such a small sample size a year ago, and he did some nice things. And we saw some things that we saw from him at multiple stops, at Indiana, at Washington. With the Falcons, it's everything else. They have playmakers on offense. They got to address that pass rush like you talked about. They have a bunch of young guys. We got to see if they can come to the table and actually, add some fruit to their labor. But at the same time, for Penix, there's going to be a maturation process. He's going to be playing these games when the seasons matter most, and that's still going to be a new experience for him, even though he got a little taste of it last year.
It's worth pointing out, as Graz has said a couple times even this week on the show, that they do have one of the better quarterback rooms in the NFL. If something happened to Penix, you got Kirk Cousins behind him, which is even kind of weird to think about. But, Bill, he was talking playoffs there. To Hawk's point, what else is he supposed to say? But is this a team that should have playoffs on their mind?
They should, and they signaled that when they made their trade in the draft for a second edge rusher. When they drafted Jelon Walker, but when you trade up for James Pierce and you give up a future first-round pick, what that tells you is we think we're an edge rusher or 2 edge rushers away from being a playoff team. And we all know the NFC South is not exactly the stiffest competition in football. The Falcons have needed a pass rush, really one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL over the last decade or so of football. They've tried to repeatedly find guys and have struck out. But this team won 8 games last year. They were not that far off from the division lead. They played the 4th easiest schedule in football this year per FPI, and their roster is not going to be better this time next year because they don't have a first-round pick next year. So you make this move thinking if we get those 2 edge rushers, that puts us over the edge, and that gets us into the postseason. I think anything short would be a disappointment for the Falcons given what they did this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. Graz, I mentioned the Kirk Cousins side of this. Just remind people exactly where that stands and kind of the little limbo that Cousins is in at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he was hoping to get released or traded this offseason and end up in a place where he had a better chance to start. It didn't happen. They didn't want to release him and have paid him $100 million for just one season, and then they couldn't get a trade package that they felt was worth it. They think he's valuable. Backup quarterback is valuable. It's not the number 53 spot on the roster. It's important, and Kirk Cousins gives them some insurance for a guy in Penix, who we obviously don't wish anything bad to happen to him, but he does enter the league with a significant injury history coming out of college.
Right, you also have somebody in that room who can be a mentor of sorts to Penix, and by all indications, that's what Cousins will be and has been.